Hello my friends, I'm so excited to finally give you my thoughts on the Oculus Quest. I've been playing with it for a few days ever since release day on Tuesday, putting it through its paces, and now I'm finally giving you my thoughts on it, both good and bad. For this entire review, I'll be comparing it to the Vive because the HTC Vive is the only other VR headset I own, and the only one that I have direct experience with. So this entire review will be directly comparing it to the Vive for all the pros and cons. Overall, let me say that this is an incredible device. The fact that we now have complete 6 degrees of freedom in VR with hand controllers without any sensors or PC or wires is pretty mind-boggling. And I'm so glad this hardware finally exists. Especially because whenever I would demo the Vive for people, they love the experience, and every time they ask, okay, what do I have to do to have this set up in my home? And then you regretfully have to go through this massive laundry list of things. You probably have to buy a new PC or a new graphics card. If you're not computer savvy, it's going to be challenging. You got to set up sensors, you have to clear a space, and it's very expensive. And yeah, it has been a big pain for standard VR systems up until now. Now, that's a pain I'm willing to endure because I love it so much, but for most people, nobody wants to spend all of that money and go through all of that complication to have a fun VR setup. It's better to have something like this. You can just pick it up and have fun. You know, it's like, we want it to be like a Nintendo Switch, where you can just pick it up, play a game, put it down, and have fun, instead of feeling like you have to have this massive technological setup inside your home. And so, I'm so glad this finally exists, because whenever someone wants to get into VR, I will immediately recommend this because of the simplicity and ease of use. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not all upsides. There are some things that only a PC-powered VR setup can do currently that this can't do. As with all things in life, there are trade-offs and pros and cons, and there are many compromises that were made to make this thing work. But I do want to give it fair credit, because the fact that it's doing everything, absolutely everything, in just the headset it's incredibly mind-boggling. There's a whole computer in here doing all of the stuff that my tower is doing for the Vive. It's a marvel of engineering, and it's amazing that it even exists and that it works as well as it does. So there are trade-offs and there were compromises that were made when they made this, but the fact that it works at all is kind of a miracle and really impressive. Okay, let's get to the details, starting with the tracking. I was really curious how this would perform because I've never used inside-out tracking before. Up until now, it's been only the Vive, which is what I'm used to. I'm used to the outside-in tracking as powered by lighthouses, and the Vive tracking with lighthouses is almost flawless. I mean, you could mess it up if you tried by putting in a bunch of mirrors or a lot of direct sunlight on your sensors. But by and large, it's incredibly rock solid, and you can move your hands behind your head, behind you. Doesn't matter what you're doing, it's always tracking you. The Oculus Quest tracking is very good, but not quite as rock solid as the Lighthouse tracking in my experience. I do feel like it's impressive that it works as well as it does. Again, considering that everything is being done inside the headset, and this is doing everything, all in real time, I find it impressive that it works as well as it does. And most of the time you won't notice. Most of the time it just performs beautifully. But since the headset needs line of sight to see the controllers, there will be times where the controllers are obstructed and the headset can't track them anymore. Like if you intentionally obstruct a controller behind your arm so your arm is intercepting and stopping what the headset can see, this controller won't be tracked anymore. If you keep your hands behind your back, completely out of sight, it will lose tracking. If you're intentionally trying to obscure it and make it not see the hands, then yeah, it's not going to see the hands because it has to see the hands. That's how it works. It has to keep line of sight with the controllers. There is an interesting exception to that though. When I was playing the Space Pirate Trainer, There's a part where you have to swap between your shield and weapon. You do that by bringing your hand behind your shoulder and back again quickly. And that worked fine. So for some reason, the very quick movement behind the shoulder and back, the tracking worked out just fine then. But for prolonged, deliberate obstruction of the line of sight, like this or behind your back, you will lose tracking. With that gotcha, 95% of the time I didn't even notice. It performs very well, and the one time a game actually asked me to do that, like in Space Pirate Trainer, it worked just fine. No game ever asked me to put my controllers like this or behind my back. So I feel like in the game design and when you're actually playing, you're not going to notice so much loss of tracking. But if you're trying hard to fool the system, you will find a way. All that said, with the tracking, it works very well. I'm really impressed that it works as well as it does. The lighthouse tracking, I would say, works 99.9% of the time. This works 95% of the time, but you know what? For what it is, that's kind of good enough. Again, everything is a trade-off. You're trading off the convenience, or you're trading away the inconvenience of this for the convenience of this. And for the trade-offs and for all the things this does, I'm willing to accept 95% accurate tracking. And speaking of the touch controllers, I will say the touch controllers I find better than the Vive ones. These are much lighter, and they just feel more comfortable in your hand. Just it conforms to your hand a lot better, and it feels more natural, and yeah, these controllers are an upgrade. I wish the Vive had controllers like these, especially going from the Quest and playing back on the Vive again. Going from this to this suddenly feels like a massive brick in your hand. And then going back again, it's like, much better. Especially the grip buttons. The grip buttons on the touch controllers are much more comfortable and easier to squeeze for the in-game actions where you're holding an object and throwing it. Whereas with the Vive ones, squeezing is kind of uncomfortable. With the two grip buttons on the sides, it just doesn't feel as good as the touch controllers. So all around, touch controllers, an upgrade. However, while the touch controllers are more comfortable, I found the headset itself less comfortable than the Vive with the Deluxe audio strap. It feels a little too front heavy, and I'm not sure if it's to blame the strap or I'm not sure what's to blame exactly. I feel like if the strap had more weight to it, then it would be a little more balanced of a weight, but this does feel too front heavy for me, and I can't play for more than an hour or two without needing to take a break. Whereas the Vive with the Deluxe audio strap feels so much more comfortable. I can play on this for hours and hours and virtually no discomfort. It's so much more comfortable the way the weight is distributed with the Deluxe audio strap on here than the weight distribution on here. And speaking of the Deluxe audio strap, I'm a huge fan of how this twisting allows you to expand or tighten the headset on your head. On the back of your head, just twist it for more or less. That's so easy. Whereas the Quest strap, it's good old Velcro. You got Velcro on the sides, Velcro on the top. That's what that is. I wish there was something like this for the Quest. Maybe there will be additional straps later, but right now it's simple and good old Velcro. The back doesn't really, the back here is kind of rigid, so it's not flexible or stretchy, but there is stretchiness in the sides here. So let's say you have the Velcro just how you like it. You can sort of rubber band it off and on a little bit to go off and on. So that's one nice thing. That way you don't have to constantly Velcro and re-Velcro every single time. You can set your Velcro and then kind of rubber band it off and on. So that's nice. Okay, let's get to how things actually look inside the Quest. The Quest boasts a higher resolution than the Vive, but to be honest, I never noticed the difference. And that is because most games make visual compromises so that they can actually be powered on this mobile device. I did notice It looked pretty sharp inside the Oculus Home menu area. The text is very readable and it seems pretty clear, but as soon as I fire up almost any game, the games have to make so many compromises that the resolution is lost. It'll either be blurry or aliased or visual artifacts of some kind, so that nothing seemed as sharp as the Oculus Home menu area. So it's a bit ironic that it does have higher resolution, but the vast majority of the time I never noticed it because the games had to make visual compromises to be able to be run on this. So don't get this looking for higher resolution, crisp, clear VR. And speaking of games making compromises, if you've ever played the titles that are on the Quest before on other systems, you will notice that some games look closer to their original and some not so much. I felt like in Rec Room and Space Pirate Trainer Demo, I saw quite a few differences from what I'm used to in the full version of the games. However, the Moss and Apex Construct ports for the Quest looked really good and very close to the originals. Those were exceptional ports. But of course, once you're into a game and having fun, these kinds of things usually don't matter. But if you're kind of nitpicky and looking for things, you will find things, but if you're having fun, it's not a big deal. Now, I obviously wear glasses, and thankfully the Quest does accommodate for glasses. By default, it ships with just the foam right on the headset, but included in the box is a glasses spacer. So you put that spacer between the foam and the headset, and they snap right on, and then glasses fit just fine. And to that effect, I want to say that the field of view with the glasses spacer seemed more or less comparable with the field of view I have on the Vive. Now, it's possible that if you're not using the glasses spacer, that your eyes will be closer to the lenses and you might get a little more field of view, but I can't confirm that because without glasses I'm blind as a bat, and so that's a maybe, can't guarantee that though. One other very important trade-off is the audio. By default, the audio is external and headphone free. It's like there's two tiny speakerphones playing all the audio for you. As such, anyone in the room can hear the audio as well, but it's an interesting trade-off because now it's so much easier to just put it on and get playing instead of having to mess with headphones or earbuds or any wires. It definitely adds a convenience factor, but there is a trade-off in sound quality. The bass is virtually non-existent. It's very tinny, so if you love quality audio, you're going to need to plug in headphones in the headphone audio jack. You can plug in headphones into either audio jack. I do wish that it came with native Bluetooth because I feel like that would be a perfect solution to have better audio if you have Bluetooth headphones like AirPods or something like that. And if you could pair your AirPods to the Quest, it would remain wireless and you would have in-ear audio that would sound a lot better. There is a hacky workaround to make that work, and I'll link to how to do that in the video description below. It's a separate video that someone made that shows you how to install Bluetooth on here. But natively, it doesn't come with Bluetooth support for headphones, which I found an odd choice because that seems like a no-brainer to me. The headset charges via USB-C, and I found that on a full charge it lasted about 3 to 4 hours of play. The touch controllers take AA batteries, and what's interesting about these is that after about 3 days of play, the battery on the touch controllers is at 80% capacity. So it's interesting that the touch controllers seem to be incredibly energy efficient, and so it's a great little thing that you won't be swapping batteries constantly. That's really nice. You can play while it's charging. It comes with a very long USB-C cable, so I think Oculus kind of expected people to play while charging. You can also charge it via a USB power battery. So if you want to put your battery in your pocket and plug in the headset, you can do that too. So, should you buy the Quest? I think that heavily depends on if you're new to VR or not. If you're new to VR, I feel like this is the best first VR purchase you can make. Because of the ease of use, it's relatively inexpensive, and for all of this convenience and trade-offs, you finally get the full freedom of movement in VR that we've never had before at this convenience level. And for a new VR player, the trade-offs are worth it, especially if you've never played the titles before on another system. You won't notice the compromises that the games have made on this. It'll be brand new. You won't even know the differences in the games. You won't miss that. And so if you're new to VR, I think this is the headset you've been waiting for because, like I said, all of the trade-offs are worth it for a new VR player. Now, one thing you should know if you're a new VR player is that if you're looking to play AAA games like Skyrim or Fallout 4, this will not play those. Those games are too huge, and there's no way this could power those games. There is an interesting hacky workaround for that, which I will be covering in a future video, but that's beyond the scope of this video because that comes with its own set of downsides, and it's hacky and it's a little complicated. So I wouldn't consider that as a realistic option. If you're new to VR and you want to play Skyrim or Fallout 4, I wouldn't bet on this delivering that for you. But if that's not a concern, then definitely go for it. Speaking of game titles, that brings me to if you already own a VR headset. I feel like the biggest downside is if you already have a VR headset on Steam, you need to re-buy every single game on the Oculus Store. So if you already have Steam and you already own Superhot VR, Beat Saber, etc., you have to buy a second time all of those games for the Quest. And that is a significant financial consideration if you already have a Steam library and you want to get the Quest for its convenience or travel or whatever. You need to re-buy all of the games. So that's a bummer if you have a big Steam library and something seriously worth considering. Now, for me, in my Vive life and my Oculus life, now that I have both of these, the Quest won't be replacing the Vive because my #1 favorite game in the entire world is Skyrim VR. And like I said before, this will not play it in a good way. This just won't cut it. The only way I can play my favorite game currently is with a Vive or other similar headset powered by a PC. Also, this is so much more comfortable to wear that I would want to wear this anyway for my long Skyrim sessions because I can play for hours and hours and feel comfortable and not feel the discomfort that this gave me. But I'm still glad I bought it because now the possibility of mobile, portable, travelable VR is here. And if I want to demo a good, decent VR experience for family and friends at parties or gatherings, this is a perfect portable solution to bring to gatherings and to show people. And I'll probably still play on this for the quick casual session, for a quick mini game or what have you, but this will not be replacing the Vive in my life. I'll be using both, but I'm glad to have it. So. Well, those are all of my thoughts on the Quest. It's a fascinating year for VR, all of this new hardware coming out, and I think that the fact that this is out now is wonderful because now so many more people can try decent VR for the first time. It's a very exciting time, and I'm really happy it exists. But do keep in mind, if you already have a VR headset, there's significant downsides to buying this. So. Do let me know down in the comments below if you feel like I missed anything. I'll be happy to answer your questions if I can. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. All right, bye. Well, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe. See ya.